The town rooftops shimmered like polished silver under the heavy moonlight. Every street was quiet, held in the grip of the midnight hour. In house after house, the windows went dark, one by one, until only a single lamp remained glowing at the edge of the neighborhood. It flickered twice, struggled against the encroaching darkness, and then died. The silence that followed was absolute. Then, a thin, haunting whistle cut through the air. It was faint at first, a low vibration that rattled the window panes. High above the sleeping streets, the darkness began to shift. A shape emerged, glowing with a deep blue light, adorned with stars that pulsed like distant beacons. The train glided through the air, ignoring the laws of gravity, its wheels spinning against the clouds instead of tracks. It descended slowly, moving toward the center of the sleeping town. The engine slowed, the blue paint reflecting the moonlight, and the train hovered just above the rows of silent houses. A conductor in a cap stood on the platform, his movements precise and calm. He scanned the rows of windows below, his presence marking the arrival of something forbidden to the waking world. The train drifted closer, its hull casting a soft blue glow into the room. Lily lay motionless, her eyes fixed on the ceiling, until a sharp tap-tap echoed against the glass. She sat up, her breath hitching as she looked toward the window. A rabbit stood on the small platform outside, his velvet cap catching the starlight. He held a golden lantern in one hand, swaying it gently to draw her gaze. Lily slid out from under her covers and pressed her palm against the cool pane. With a deliberate movement, the conductor reached into his pocket and produced a small, metallic rectangle. He pressed it against the glass. It stayed there, held by some invisible force. Lily unlatched the window, the cool night air rushing inside. She reached out, her fingers closing around the object. It was a silver ticket, cool to the touch and perfectly smooth. Etched into its surface were the words, "One ride to Dreamland." The conductor gestured toward the open door of the carriage, his expression calm and welcoming. Lily looked from the ticket to the vast, star-dusted sky, the uncertainty of the moment giving way to a sudden, quiet surge of wonder. Lily stepped across the threshold, the floor beneath her feet soft and yielding like pressed velvet. The air inside the carriage smelled faintly of dried lavender and old books. She moved past the conductor, who stood by the door with his lantern, and turned toward the center of the cabin. 2 rows of seats faced each other, illuminated by the steady, pulsing glow of the stars embedded in the ceiling. Max sat in the corner, his knuckles white as he gripped a small, worn toy. He looked up, his eyes heavy with the weight of the night, and offered a faint, tired smile. Beside him, a girl named Sophie sat motionless, her gaze fixed on the shifting patterns of blue light dancing across the walls. Lily slid into the seat directly opposite them. The silence here was not empty. It was thick with the shared knowledge of where they were headed. Max leaned forward, his voice barely a breath. "I have been here once before," he whispered, his grip on his toy loosening. Sophie nodded slowly, her movements rhythmic and calm. Lily watched them, feeling the tension of the waking world drop away. They were strangers, yet they moved in the same rhythm. 3 passengers bound by the same secret. The carriage swayed gently, a rhythmic pulse that signaled the end of hesitation and the beginning of the journey. Mr. Hops reached up, his paw closing around the cord of a small silver bell hanging from the ceiling. He pulled. A clean, melodic chime vibrated through the floorboards, resonating in the marrow of the children's bones. The carriage groaned once, a deep, wooden sound that signaled the departure. Then, gravity shifted. The train surged forward and upward, a sudden lift that pressed Lily, Max, and Sophie back into the deep cushioning of their velvet seats. The window became a frame for a retreating world. The rooftops they had known seconds ago began to slide away, shrinking until they were no more than tiny, silver-edged shapes against the dark. Streetlights and porch lamps flickered, blurring together in the distance until they resembled a swarm of golden fireflies caught in a jar. The air inside the carriage grew thin and crisp. Lily pressed her hand against the glass, watching the horizon widen as the train leveled out, gliding through the silent, velvet dark of the sky. The weight of the world they had left behind dissolved with every passing second. Below them, the town was gone, replaced by an endless expanse of shadows, They were no longer anchored to the ground. The steady hum of the train vibrations smoothed into a seamless, rhythmic glide, carrying them further into the quiet unknown. The darkness outside the window thinned, replaced by a soft, pearlescent glow that bathed the carriage in white light. The train banked slowly, gliding into an expanse where the sky and the ground had become one. This was the Cloud Meadow. Before them, the air was not empty. It was filled with creatures made of swirling, vaporous mist. These sheep floated in the currents, their bodies shifting and reforming as they drifted through the open sky. They bounced with a strange, gravity-defying grace, rising and falling in long, slow arcs that mirrored the movement of the train. Lily leaned closer to the glass, watching as one of the mist sheep drifted right up to the window. It nudged the pane, its form momentarily swirling into a soft, rounded shape before dissolving back into the fog. The carriage glided into the middle of the herd, cutting a silent path through the white haze. Outside, thousands of these creatures moved in a synchronized, gentle chaos. They were silent, their movements producing no sound, only the faint, rhythmic pulse of the train's wheels against the clouds. The children sat transfixed, watching the landscape shift from the static world of homes and rooftops to this fluid, living dreamscape where the laws of the earth no longer held any sway. Mr. Hops turned from the controls, his long ears twitching as he gestured toward the window with a rhythmic wave of his paw. "Count them," he murmured, his voice barely rising above the hum of the carriage. Lily, Max, and Sophie leaned forward, their faces illuminated by the soft, reflected glow of the drifting mist sheep. "One sheep," Lily whispered, her eyes tracking a vaporous form as it arched through the air. "Two sheep." Sophie followed, her voice trailing off into a soft breath. "Three sheep," Max added, his eyelids drooping. The counting continued, a slow, steady cadence that seemed to sync with the pulsing light of the train. The air in the carriage grew dense and warm. With every number, the children's voices became quieter, more deliberate. "8 sheep," Lily murmured, her chin dipping toward her chest. 9 sheep. Sophie sighed, her eyes now closed. The counting faltered. Max reached the 10th number, but it dissolved into a soft, indistinct hum before he could finish. His head tipped forward, coming to rest against the side of his teddy bear. The counting stopped entirely. A heavy, velvet-like fatigue settled over the seats, pulling the remaining 2 children into the same deep, rhythmic stillness that had already claimed their companion. The train banked away from the open expanse, slipping beneath a canopy of towering, ancient trees. The light shifted from pearlescent white to a deep, resonant emerald. This was the Forest of Hush. As the iron wheels settled onto tracks of soft moss, the environment began to speak. From the high branches, owls blinked in steady, slow intervals. The forest floor came alive with a pulsing, rhythmic melody. Thousands of crickets chirped in perfect, unified unison, creating a steady beat that filled the carriage. Lily watched the shadows of leaves dance across the velvet seats. Every chirp of the crickets felt like a heartbeat, slow and deliberate. She felt her own pulse settle, matching the cadence of the woods. Beside her, Sophie shifted, her grip on the edge of the blanket loosening as the melody washed over them. The train moved with deliberate slowness, gliding through the thick, fragrant air of the undergrowth. There was no resistance here, only the steady, hypnotic pull of the forest. The trio sat perfectly still, their eyes half closed, their breathing now synchronized with the pulsing rhythm of the crickets. The outside world had vanished entirely, replaced by the deep, resonant sanctuary of the trees. The trees parted, and the darkness gave way to a warm golden glow that spilled across the floorboards of the carriage. Dreamland Station appeared ahead, suspended in a sea of soft, radiant light. The train glided onto the platform with a final, gentle sigh of steam. Before the wheels had fully stopped, the doors slid open. A group of bears stood on the platform, each holding large plush pillows. They moved with quiet efficiency, stepping onto the train to assist the arrivals. Following them, a line of kittens approached, carrying small silver trays. Steam rose from cups of warm cocoa. the scent of chocolate and spice drifting through the air. The kittens moved between the seats, placing the trays on small tables with careful paws. Lily blinked, the golden light softening the edges of the room. She reached out, her fingers finding the warmth of a cup. The bears stood by, waiting, their presence acting as a silent, steady anchor. The entire carriage hummed with a sense of complete safety. There was no hurry here, no noise, just the steady clink of silver on wood and the soft, rhythmic breathing of the travelers. The transition was complete. The journey had reached its destination, and the station offered its quiet, golden embrace to those who had arrived. Mr. Hops led the way toward the center of the platform, where 3 beds of white mist hovered just inches above the ground. The air here felt different, thick with a cool, gentle stillness that pressed against the skin. Lily approached the first bed, pressing her palm into the surface. It did not sink. It yielded, conforming to her touch like warm, solid light. Max and Sophie followed, their movements slow and heavy with the promise of rest. Max climbed onto the nearest bed, his body instantly finding a perfect, weightless alignment. Sophie followed, pulling her limbs inward until she was entirely cradled by the soft, drifting vapor. Lily settled into the third bed, feeling the mist rise around her shoulders, tucking her in with a density that felt like a firm, comforting embrace. Every muscle in her body let go. The tension of the journey dissolved into the white expanse. There was no longer a need to hold on, to sit upright, or to navigate the world. The mist held them with absolute precision, supporting their weight until they felt as light as the air itself. It was the final stage of the trip, a space where physical reality softened into a complete, quiet sanctuary of rest. Mr. Hops stood at the edge of the platform and reached for his lantern. With a slow, steady turn of his paw, he lowered the wick. The golden light that filled the station began to retract, pulling back into the base of the lamp until only a single, faint glow remained. The long shadows stretched across the cloud beds, reaching toward the ceiling like quiet fingers. He looked back at the trio one last time. Max had already let his head sink into the mist, his breathing deep and rhythmic. Sophie rested with her chin tucked into the cloud, her eyes closed in absolute stillness. Lily followed, her hands relaxing as the last of her awareness slipped away. Mr. Hops turned and stepped back onto the train. He walked to the front, checked the pressure gauge, and pulled the silver cord. The train let out a final, muffled whistle. Choo, choo. It was a soft, distant sound that seemed to weave itself into the silence of the night. As the echo dissolved into the air, the train began its slow glide away from the station. The platform emptied. The station lights faded into the dark. On the cloud beds, the 3 travelers drifted into a deep, silent sleep, traveling further into the quiet space of their own dreams.